Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weisel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Satlin. How's it going, man?
Ben, what did I tell you earlier this week? I texted you and I said, what works?
Threats,
Uh,
specifically
I, I said,
threatening our viewers.
well, that may have been what happened, but I said, Ben, bullying works. Sometimes you got to be a little stern and a little aggressive. And you guys came through. You gave us three new ratings and reviews. They were all very nice. And see how simple that was? Super easy. You just plug it right in. You don't even have to say anything nice. You just have to give us the 5 stars. So we appreciate that. That was really, really great of everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We didn't get any on Spotify. So now Spotify's slacking, but awesome stuff. It's amazing what happens when I had to put my foot down and I had to make a statement.
Not only three new ratings, but we got three reviews, like you mentioned. Yeah, that I can't remember if we really ever had three reviews in 1 week. So really appreciate it. We had a great week of action this past weekend with it being conference championships. Plus, we had some really fast performances elsewhere for teams that weren't competing at conference championships. And in some cases, we had athletes doubling back at invitationals after running their conference championships, which is pretty crazy weekend. Anything anything else that we want to go on the intro? You didn't do your normal spiffy kind of
No, I didn't.
out there, and it's throwing me off a little bit.
Well, because it's so important to me that it's not about me, Ben. It's about the listeners. It's about the reach. It's about the runners, right? So no, that's all I really got. Anything else I'd have to talk about is my disappointment with the Sixers, and I don't want to talk about that. So
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
Moving on. All right. So we had a lot going on this weekend. So we're going to try to hit all the highlights. If we don't get to your performances, as always, we're sorry. There was just a lot going on. With that said, Garrett, do we want to just start with maybe our favorite performances? Do we want to work our way through the different conferences? How do you want to do this?
Let's start with the different conferences and just go through the ones that we've already highlighted here.
Sure.
But let's start with the ones that wasn't conference related.
Okay. So let's go with the Stanford women running a 10:49 in the DMR. Probably the most expected result of the weekend if you had told us this is the lineup they're going to run. And if you said they're going to inch under 1050, I don't think any of us would have been surprised at all.
I don't really have a whole lot to say here. Like, I'm sorry, we're starting off a little flat, but I just don't. I mean, it's a good lineup. I think everyone ran really, really well, but no one ran like out of their minds, like new PR changes the way we think about them. I think you kind of go down the list. We're like, yeah, they could all run that. I like the move to put Tanaka on the opening leadoff leg. I think it's a really just great spot for her. She's been running well as
Mm-hmm.
of late, and Whitaker gives them a net gain on the anchor. So like for me, it was just a pretty expected performance. All ran pretty well on their own. Basically, they didn't have anyone pushing them barely. Um, but yeah, I don't really have much to add to that.
I should have looked this up before, but where does this put us with the TFers list for the DMRs? Are
It's like
we
fifth or sixth, I think.
okay? And so the final time I'm
Six.
guessing is what 10:50.
10:54:49. It's UCLA if you get rid of the NC State B team.
Mm, man, that is quite potent. Yeah, I really don't have much else to say. Good performance from them. They went out, got it done. They had the luxury of not having to run a conference championships, and they could just focus on qualifying a team. Do you think we're gonna see how many out of the lineup that ran this weekend? How many do you think we'll see at NCAA's?
That's a good question. Um, Gosh, I don't know. It might just be Tanaka and their 400 runner. I
Yeah.
think that's it. Because I think what happens, I think they also what they might do is they might say, if Whitaker and Willis get to the finals, then you guys aren't running the DMR. Or if one
Yeah.
gets it, whoever doesn't qualify for the finals is going to run in it. But even then, they're freshmen. I think they want the open experience for these freshmen who are eventually going to be title contenders more so than they are now. So it's something, important to keep in mind there.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's move on and talk about Simone Plourde running 8:53 at the Ken Shannon Last Chance Invitational, taking down a pretty strong field. You had Sadie Sargent, Lexi Holiday, Lowry run 8:57, Ella Baran 8:57, Grace Featherstone, and Emily Venters 8:58. This was a really good field, and Plourde beat them all by over 3 seconds. It was just a very impressive performance and puts her smack dab in NCAA qualifying position. Sadie Sargent's right there on the bubble. But I think the biggest takeaway is Plourde is just going to be a lot more of a factor nationally than we suppose coming into this weekend.
She is. And I think like you kind of combine the fact that she has 436 mile speed, which isn't even from this season. She's progressively been getting better. She proved her talent on the grass, and she looked really good in that 3K race. Like scary good. You tell me like the right thing and like what her ceiling might be. I could see her finishing as high as like third in a really perfect situation on the national stage. I mean, she just has all the small things going for her. She dominated a really good field. And so from my perspective, I think she just has all the small things going for her. And just like what she brings to the table.
Yeah, that sounded a little aggressive, finishing third, but I looked through kind of the qualifying list, and there aren't that many women that I feel like she can't beat. I mean, obviously there's Tui, but we saw Olamamwe lose this weekend. We saw, I mean, Camille is probably up there, even though she hasn't run maybe one of the fastest times. But and Kaylee McCabe and Markovic, and we'll talk about Parker Valby later. But yeah, I mean, she's right in that, I think, second group that's contenders for that second or third spot, really.
And that's my thing. It's just I don't know what the other women are doing that's so much better than what Plourde has done. Do I think, would I give Markovic and would I give McCabe, would I give those women like a little bit of an edge? Yeah, I would. But like as great as Hilda Alamamwe was and is, I'm just not sure how she's going to do tactically. Maybe she does great. Valby, we're going to get to that. We don't even know if she's going to be racing. There's a handful of women like that, right? Bush has not looked super sharp. The 3K is probably her best event, so credit to her there. But there's some moments where I take a look at this and I'm like, yeah, I just think this could be a really good option and good opportunity for Plourde.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else you wanted to highlight in this race before we move on?
No, I mean the BYU women went really, really well, but it's crazy that we're now getting to the point where we're talking about 8:57 and 8:58 women, and they're not even being mentioned now.
Well, I mean, Sargent's the last woman in right now, and that's pretty crazy at 8:57:08. I could not imagine someone telling me that even a year ago. I was a little surprised to see Baran not finish second. She probably would have been my pick to kind of be that next qualifier. It's heartbreaking that she's literally less than a second away.
Yeah, I really like her. She's so dynamic, has been actually pretty consistent, like really knows like how to take advantage of her like season long momentum. I do like Baran a lot too. And I like what she did at the D3 level too. So I'm wondering though.
Think we're gonna see some scratches?
So like I mean obviously Tanisima isn't gonna be there.
Nope.
We'll talk about this. We don't really know what's going on with Parker Valby, and we'll explain that in a moment. And then they just need one more.
Yeah. I don't see where that one is coming from, though.
I agree. So I don't know where that's going.
Yeah, she's right on the edge. But yeah, really good performance by the BYU women, again, proving that this rebuild of the BYU team has just come so quickly. I'm really excited to see what happens next year. I think this year is just a perfect springboard to something really special, and we've talked about that before. But yeah, just another good weekend for them and a great performance by Plourde. And then wrapping up with our non-conference performances, the Washington men, they did it again at BU this time. They just I mean, it was almost like a replica of what they did at Washington like a month or so ago. They were just dominant. Well, not dominant, I guess, in the context of the race. They had Jordy Beamish, who looked unbelievable, winning in 351. But you had Kieran Lum, Luke Hauser running 352, Nathan Green 353, Aiden Ryan 353, Aaron All 355, who's going to be like right on the edge. And then the two worst Huskies were probably the two favorites to win this out of any of them. Joe Wascom and Brian Fay running 356, 358. When you're putting four men running 353 faster, and one of them isn't the presumed or one of the favorites in the mile, that's just wild depth.
Here's now what their entire roster sounds like in terms of mile PRs. Joe Wascom 351, Brian Fay 352, Kieran Lum 352, Nathan Green 352, Luke Hauser 352. Let's stop there. That's 5 men at 352 or faster. 5. Sam Ellis unattached. He doesn't have indoor eligibility. 353. Aiden Ryan 353 and Aaron All at 355. That's 8 guys at 355 or faster, 7 guys at 353 or faster. Does anyone have any idea how like insane this is? Like this is like I don't know what the right word is. This is legendary stuff. Like this is a historically dominant team. This is the best group of milers the NCAA has ever seen, and it's not even remotely close. No one's even in this atmosphere.
You could split up their team 50-50 like a like team A and team B, and it would still be the best group of milers we've ever seen. If you and I just did like a fantasy draft of them, we would both end up with teams that would be the best ever in the mile. I'm looking at this. I don't think they've put in the results to TFers yet, but they had four men qualified in the mile before this, and then you add in Hauser, Aiden Ryan, and All, and they should have 7 guys.
I think they're going to get all 7 because they just need 1 scratch.
That's unreal. Like not all of them are going to run, obviously.
No.
But have we ever seen at an indoor championships even like 5 guys from the same team all qualify in the same event?
So not indoor, but outdoor. BYU. Yeah, we're so good at our jobs. But yeah, I mean, it is insane because indoors is the hardest one. Like you have to be
way harder than outdoors.
Yeah. They just got in. They just got put in. Here we go. All's at 17. They have 1.
Yeah, so he'll make
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They have. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 6 guys in the top 8, and they have 5 in the top 6. That's so dumb. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it goes SIE 1 and then Washington,
Montana State, Washington. Like it's so funny. Listen, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but when we do our end of season awards, I'm sorry to anyone else, but Andy Powell will win. He has to. And if someone tries to get cute with the voting, I will override them. I'm just like, no. I'm like, they're like, but I thought you could say we could vote for whoever we want. I'm like, not really. It's a dictatorship. You have to vote for Powell. So
it's incredible. Like I'm curious what the record is for most points scored in one event by a team. Like I think, I mean, I'm presuming they're probably going to run 4 or 5 guys in the mile. And Wascom's going to be one of the favorites, although he didn't have a great day. Nathan Green's going to be one of the biggest contenders. Like, this is a team that could realistically score 20 points at NCAAs in just the mile.
Just in the mile.
Which
Could you imagine?
I mean, we don't really talk about like overall like team titles like for track, but you think about how many points they're just going to score from a distance side. I mean, across the 15 or the mile all the way to the 5K. I mean, they could be a podium team just with their distance guys.
Well, I mean, look at what NAU and Stanford have done,
Yeah.
right? Like they did kind of basically that last year. They've got Cass Elliott in the 8 now because he just ran 146.
Yeah, that's right.
They've got 7 guys who could all run the mile if they want. They won't. They're going to get 1 guy in the 5K. They'll get 1 or 2 guys in the 3K. They'll do a DMR that will almost definitely score.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they could.
They could win it if everything goes right.
I don't know if they can win it.
Usually it's what, 60-ish points.
Yeah, I just don't see them. Like, I mean, they would.
I mean, it's
literally
unlikely.
Everything would have to go perfectly.
I mean, they could win the DMR. They could score 20 points in the mile. That if they have to pick up 20 to 30 points in the other events, which is unlikely.
It's just unlikely. Like 24 is a best case scenario between the 8, 3K, 5K.
Yeah,
and that's a best case scenario. So I'm saying I think they could, on an absolutely perfect day, get second,
which is crazy.
So just distance runners. Yeah, nice. So
pour one out for the distance runners. Anything else? I mean, again, a little bit of a concern with Wascom and Faye. I mean, they still broke 4 and quite easily, but obviously not having their best days. Would have liked to see them come into NCAAs with a little bit more momentum. But I mean, we're just picking at nits at this point. Like, there isn't much to discuss in terms of negatives.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like it's a time trial. They've been racing all season. Like, I'm just not looking at this because this race will not be anything like what they see on the national stage.
No. I'm fascinated to see how that plays out. I mean, with SIE and then just a mountain pack of Huskies, I don't know how they can dictate how things are run in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they absolutely can. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. All right, let's move on. Let's go to ACC, which was just a thrilling overall meet. Shout out to the Hokies. I also feel so bad for Duke, dude. I feel so bad for Duke.
I've never seen anything like it.
So Cianelli, the director of Virginia Tech, I think it's his last year with the program. I'm not entirely sure. I think it is. And they even interviewed him, and he's like, I've done this for my entire life. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. So for those of you who don't know, Duke just had to cross the finish line in the 4x4, and they were basically going to win the ACC title. They lean at the line with Miami next to them. The baton gets thrown out of their hand by accident, cross the line. Duke never picked up the baton. They never actually crossed the line. They get disqualified, and they don't score the points, the 2 points that they needed to at least tie, and they lose to Virginia Tech. So sad. And Duke had an amazing meet. They have constructed that roster perfectly. And I feel really, really bad because that's a really good roster. That's a great coaching staff. They've done all the right things. But go Hokies.
Speaking of Duke, they on the women's side did win the DMR in really exciting fashion. Amina Matuk, I mean, she didn't win any individual titles this weekend, but she was about as good as anyone in the country. What she did in the DMR, in the 800, in the 3K, she was just a huge performer, and a big reason why Duke really should have won the overall championship. She ran a 4:29 anchor leg to give Duke the victory. The whole DMR ran very, very well. But she made up some ground on Olivia Markovic, who's obviously a great runner in her own right. And then the other big story, Caitlin Tui just bringing NC State from the depths of hell to finish third with a 4:23 split. Like, every weekend that Tui runs, I like look at something, or what, like a split, or whether she runs individually. Just like, are these numbers in the right order? Like, she ran not 4:32. Oh, okay, she's doing 4:23. And like the other week when we were talking about what she did on the flat track to run the DMR, and it was like a converted 4:25. She one-ups that and gets them to finish third running 4:23. I mean, just running out of words to describe what she's doing.
I don't want. Did you watch the DMR by chance?
I didn't watch. That was the one I missed.
Okay. So Tui gets the baton like ridiculously far back. And you're like, NC State's out of it. Like, I don't care what Caitlin Tui can do. They're out of it. There's just no way. And then like each lap's just a little bit more. She covers a little bit more. Caitlin Tui looks like she is sprinting the entire time. And it gets like 2 or 3 laps to go, and I go, can she is she gonna catch them? But yeah, that's
9 seconds behind Notre Dame, and they finished like a half a second behind Markovic.
I mean, it's so incredible, and she doesn't look tired. Like, she just doesn't look tired at all. So yeah, it's pretty impressive. Duke, though, let's talk about Duke. That DMR is so young. They had all underclassmen on there. Lauren Tolbert, Delia Frias is a freshman on the opening leg. Like, they're all super young. They could have easily crumbled under the pressure. But Matug is so good. Everyone just did their job. Tolbert's really underrated. It was all really solid stuff.
Yeah, if you can give Matug like just a second or two behind the leaders, she's gonna beat almost anybody outside of Caitlin Tui. Like, she's been very good. And then elsewhere in the ACCs, I wanted to just shout out Ethan Strand, 746, just a hellacious kick to knock out his teammate Parker Wolf to win the 3K in 746 was just excellent, with one of the best kicks, I think, all weekend. And then in the 800s, we saw some really interesting races. We saw Catherine Mitchell win in 203, and we saw Roden of Clemson run 146 and some interesting tactics where the Clemson guys just went up front, controlled the race, and then Roden just got away from the rest of the field and hung on after going out, I think, in like 51 through 400. It was
quick.
Very quick first 2 laps, and he hung on and ran 146, which is huge performance to qualify him for nationals. And then Mitchell, I mean, it was a tough field, and she timed her kick to perfection to get this win.
Yeah, I mean, the women's 800, you kind of get halfway through, and I was like, I'm beginning to get it. Like, I'm never usually concerned about Lindsey Butler. I'm never concerned, right? You watch her race and you're like, she's got it.
She's in control.
She's in control. And you got halfway through it, you go, I don't know if she's got this. I think it was just a bad race. And the crazy part is that, like, I think she's still going to qualify. Is she still going to qualify?
Yeah, I think she's right on the edge right now, but I think she will.
She's 16. Yeah. So, and now it becomes like a game of like, what does she run? We will do an article on that. You probably already know that by now if you're listening to this on Wednesday. So what am I even saying now? But yeah, interesting to see what happens with her now. But Mitchell is like, she's doing all the small things right, hasn't had a bad race, continuing to get better, and now just took down multiple stars. I really like her. Like, if you need a deep sleeper pick for the national meet, she's pretty good, because honestly, you take a look at the back end of this national meet field. Not a lot of women, there's not like a lot who really stand out and like really excite me in terms of like their potential, except Catherine Mitchell.
Not a lot of experience on that back end. You have that front group that is pretty experienced, with the exception of the Stanford freshmen. But then you kind of look back and you're like, there's a lot of women here who you aren't sure how they're going to react at NCAA. So yeah, I thought she was super poised and ran an exceptionally smart race, and I think that was a PR for her of 203 flat. So she's peaking at the right time, and I echo your sentiments of a sleeper pick. Anything on the men's 800 before we move on?
Men's 800. No, I mean, I think Tyrese Roden was great. They had a great game plan. Shout out to Amon Thornton, because without him, that race doesn't happen for Roden. So shout out to Amon Thornton.
And Thornton hung on. Like, it looked like he was going to get past, but he hung on tough for third. I thought he ran a very gutsy race to hold off the Miami duo too. Is there anything at Big Tens that we want to hit on before we move on to Big 12s?
I didn't really think there was anything in the Big Ten that I wanted to talk about.
Okay. That's
Penn
fine.
State ran well. Penn State ran really well.
They did. Rachel Gearing 203. They swept the 800s for on the men and women's side. So yeah, it was a lot of tactical races. You look at the times that
Very
won a
tactical.
lot of the races. Jackson Sharp, double champion of 3K, 5K. But very tactical across the board. I think you could say the same thing about the Big 12. I think that maybe the highlight performances, Creighton Carrozza picking up a nice win in 148 against a very good Big 12 800 field, and Fouad Massoudi beating teammate Shoppy to run 357 with a 354 conversion. He looks, I mean, there are very few people that I think can beat him in the form that he's in right now.
Yeah, he's really good. Like really, really good.
Like, do you where does he stack up in the like Washington? Like, if you put him on Washington's team, where would he be in terms of best milers on that team?
Are we talking tactically?
Just like, I guess going into NCAAs, who do you think? Like, do you think who's going to score the most points for you?
Probably Waskam than him.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
And I think, and we talked about this last week, and I was super impressed with him going toe to toe with Wascom in the 1200 like in VMR, and that makes me feel like there really isn't much of a gap between those two guys. So I think it's those two guys, and then SIE are probably your top three in the mile. But that's really.
I would put SIE ahead of him.
Yes. Oh yeah, I agree. I think SIE's one, and then those next two. So let's move to the SECs, and we got to start with one woman who did not compete at SECs, and that, of course, is Parker Valby, who did not compete in the 3K or 5K as we expected. Where this leaves her for the national meet, we're not necessarily sure, but we do know that because she did not run that 5K, she is not going to run a qualifying time for the 5K, which is significant news. Leaves her out of potentially her best chance at finishing second to Tui. But I mean, there's a lot of conjecture out there. We're not really sure what's going on, but it's still big news when arguably the second best runner in all of in the country on the distance side is not competing at their conference championship.
I reached out, talked to a few people, and I'm getting 1,000 different responses. Not a ton are convincing. Some are more convincing than others. Some make sense, but then I'm also being led to believe that it's not the case. I don't know. And so I'm not going to report anything. It's odd. It's really, really odd. You know, it's not like she wasn't like running for the entirety of the season, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things where I'm just not sure what's going to happen. So, yeah, I hope she runs. I hope she does. Maybe it's one of those things where like something was just kind of bothering her and they were just like, you know what, let's just get you to the national meet. Hopefully that's like the worst case scenario of what it is. Or maybe she was just tired. I don't know. I just want to see her on the national stage because every race that she's in is entertaining and fun. Like she's going to go push it out there. She doesn't care who's in the field. And that's kind of what I like about her is that she's doesn't care how good Tui is. She's going to make this a race. So that's why I hope we see her at least in the 3K. It's a shame that she's not in the 5K because that's her best event. And that's where I think she could run something extremely quick. But who knows, man? That's just the NCAA nowadays. It's just a bunch of no one knowing what's going on about anything. So.
Yeah, it is a shame, no matter how you break it out, that we won't see her in her full capacity at the very least at the national meet. But let's transition and talk about someone who did run extremely well, and that was Lauren Gregory. Had herself a meet, winning the mile in 4:31, and then coming back and winning the 3K in 9:09. I feel like she's gone through so many evolutions throughout her career. We saw her as like this mid-distance powerhouse, and then last spring she was one of the favorites to win the 10K, and now she's come all the way back and winning the mile and the 3K, and the mile looking like really her best event again. I don't know where she's going to stack up nationally, but this was just a very impressive performance to hold off some of the names that she had to this weekend, and win in both of those races was super spectacular. I mean, beating Salon Ayildiz from South Carolina, who put in a very hard charge for this championship, was super, super impressive.
Ayildiz looked great. Like she
Yeah.
was just there, and you're like, when is she going to drop? When is she going to drop? And she never did. Gregory running 4:31, going wire to wire, just simply running away from Ayildiz and Asakal is really impressive. We really shouldn't be ignoring that. Like she completely dictated this race.
Yeah.
Ayildiz did not give her a lot of room.
No.
But what percent chance would you give Gregory to win the national title?
Let me pull up T first here, make sure that I'm not missing out on anybody. So we don't think Tui's going to race more than likely in the mile. I think Gregory probably, I don't think she's necessarily the favorite, but I would give her like a 30% chance of winning.
So then
maybe
let's say
25.
I was gonna say, let's say let's say you give Matug like a 40% chance, and that means someone else would only have like a 30% chance.
Yeah, I think everybody else after that, I think it could be split pretty evenly. I think Maya Ramsden deserves some love there, but there isn't anybody else who really stands out as having maybe a like more than like a 15% chance at winning outside of those two, I think, in my mind.
Yeah, I like Ramsden. I think like it's Ramsden, Matug. I think it's Gregory. There's a few women like you could maybe convince me about an Oregon woman. You could maybe convince me about like Gibson, maybe Butler in a tactical setting. It's speed based, like, but none that are so clear cut convincing as the three that we've spoken about. So I agree. I think I'd give Gregory like closer to a 20% chance, but I'd give Ramsden a bit higher. But I mean, at this point, it's, you know, tic tac. So
yeah, and I will add Kazimierska in there. I think she's probably deserves to be in that top group as well, because
I would put her there yet.
Yeah, I mean, the inexperience is a little concerning, but what she's done in the DMR, and then just from a purely time perspective after running the DMR, I think she's probably in that group, but the fourth, like the least, the worst odds out of that group.
Okay, I mean, yeah, all right. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. I don't want to do this exercise right now. Even though I was the one who asked the question, but yeah, great racing from all. I like Ayildiz a lot. I feel like it's not ridiculous to like say that she's approaching the All-American lock status.
Yes.
I
think she ran a really smart race. I loved seeing someone run with just straight up glasses. That is always cool. I very much enjoy doing that. I've tried to run with glasses. I can't do it, so I always respect those who can. But yeah, it's hard to say that she's not going to get through the first round at the very least. So I'm with you there. Asakal, I was a little surprised that she wasn't right there with them. But she still settled for third and had a solid performance.
I don't know what to think about Asakal right now. I don't think she's running poorly by any means. I just don't know, does she have the edge to take down, you know, one of these All-American locks or All-American favorites, I should say. Like I don't see her like finishing in the back end, but I also don't know if she's going to be an All-American. And she's just like a really interesting runner because I think she's definitely matured as a racer a lot. I just don't know how much, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I think what she did in December running that 4:32 really heightened our expectations, and then we just haven't seen the progression there like we maybe would expect. So yeah, she's a tough one. Let's go to the men's 800 though, which was one of the weirdest, like just craziest races that I've seen. We saw a fall early in the race. Tiernan Corcoran went down, almost took teammate Baylor Franklin with him as well. Will Sumner ended up taking home the win. The LSU duo Sells McBride pushed the pace early and were controlling things. But Sumner was patient and kicked at the perfect time after kicking past Sam Austin, and then Baylor Franklin tried his best to get back into the race after being caught up early, and he ended up finishing third. But it's hard to take a lot from this race. I honestly come out of this race feeling decently about Franklin because he just struggled to really get a foothold in this race and still finished third, going up against some really good 800 guys. But the lack of Novoski Anderson in this race and then just the overall craziness, it's hard to really know what to take from this race.
And Will Sumner's a true freshman, which is like the wildest. Now, he was a superstar freshman, but this is like a weird race. And this is not, it wasn't pretty. And he could have had a lot of moments where he just messed up. He did all the right things. It was just a lot of maturity. I still keep waiting for him to be like, for me to be like, when are you going to mess up? And he hasn't. Like, it's just a great thing. I'm very happy about that. But I'm trying to figure out like who his comp is, and I can't figure it out. I don't know if I want to say Brandon Miller yet, but it's kind of getting subtle hints of that. And I'm just trying to figure out like who else I kind of see him as. And yeah, I don't know.
I think that's actually a really good comparison, and that's who I was going to bring up, because Brandon Miller, before he broke out, he won SECs, but he didn't qualify for nationals. And right. Sumner's looking like that very well might happen to him. I mean, with some scratches, he could get in, but right now he's sitting at number 18. So I think we could see a very similar situation where he just needs to take that next step in terms of pure speed and pure raw times, but he's got the tactics and the closing speed to be dangerous in any race that isn't super quick.
So Nathan Green will probably scratch. And then it just comes down to, will Elliott Cook run the mile or the 800? Mm-hmm. And that's going to ultimately determine whether or not Will Sumner goes to the national meet. Because I'm looking at everything else. Like, unless you want to talk about some DMR implications, which I don't even know if they'd really do that. But, like, yeah, it's going to come down to Elliott Cook, basically.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anything else from this one?
No, that's it.
All right. Anything else from the SECs or any other conference that you wanted to hit before we wrap it up?
We did pretty well. This was like pretty quick, actually. For
I know. I'm like, we're only 30 so minutes in. This feels too quick.
Yeah, and I don't want to pass up, like, Devin Hart 13:29, Ruby Smee 15:38. Smee's going to qualify. Hart probably not. Yeah. Maybe. Here's the thing: Isaiah Rodriguez hasn't raced recently. What if someone scratches for a DM? Like, I don't know. So he could get in.
Yeah, that line's going to be a lot higher than we expected.
Yeah. Kai Robinson 7:42.
Oh yes, we definitely need to touch on that, because him coming back from World XC and then winning that race by, what was that, over like 5 seconds to qualify himself was such a clutch performance. He needed that to be able to go to NCAAs, and we probably think that might be his best event. And so for him to do that,
best event.
You think the 5K?
Yeah, the 5K is his best event.
Okay. Yeah, that might be true. But yeah, huge performance and very, very clutch.
I mean, it's a clutch performance. It's an impressive one, especially when you realize that he's coming back from World XC, where he also ran really well. And but like, if I had told you that Kai Robinson was going to run 7:42, you wouldn't have been surprised. Do I think it's harder that he's doing that after World XC, after flying literally across the world? Yes, I do think that's hard. And it's actually even more impressive. But I think the 5K is his best event. I think he's better in the longer distances. I don't know if I'd call him I don't think he's like one of my title favorites. I think he can win the title in the 3K, but I don't know if I call him like a title favorite.
Well, when you have two guys who have run 7:36, and then we have Masaudi, who is looking unbelievable right now, it's hard to say.
I mean, SAE's in there.
I mean, I don't know how good I feel about him if he's going to be doubling back from the mile. But yeah, I think there's just a lot more guys in the mix than we kind of envisioned coming into this season that have vaulted past Robinson in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's an interesting group here because like Kai Robinson runs 742, and if I told you, hey, Kai Robinson's going to run 742 this season, and then if I also told you, hey, Ryan Shoppy and Yassine Abdallah are going to be ranked ahead of him, I don't think you would have believed me.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting. I think he's better suited for the 5K. I think this was just like hey, we're trying to score points. It's like a cherry on top kind of thing. Surprised Hicks, the third or fourth place finisher from last year's 3K, not going to qualify for the 3K.
Yeah.
Sprout gets in by like 1 or 2 spots. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic there, but we'll see how it goes.
Quick question to wrap things up on. So you have Dylan Jacobs, Kai Robinson, and Drew Bosley. Those 3 are going to be the top, if not the top contenders in the group of the top contenders in the 5K and 3K.
I'm sorry, we have repeat the name. So it's going to be Drew Bosley, Dylan Jacobs, and Robinson.
Kai Robinson.
Okay, yeah.
Who scores the most total points at NCAAs?
Ooh, good question. I have no idea. I have zero clue. If you force someone to choose, I'd say Jacobs. I don't think there's a good answer.
I'm leaning Bosley, but that's like me thinking that he's going to be NER 2.0, and that's just a hard bar to live up to. But I think he's going to be. I don't know if he'll win either, but I definitely see him. I feel a little bit more comfortable with him finishing top 3 in both, maybe than either Jacobs or Robinson. But all should,
yeah,
and that's a fair. Close.
Yeah, I mean someone's going to falter.
Yeah,
one of those guys is going to falter in the 5K, and one of them are going to falter in the 3K. Like it's not going to be so cut and dry,
right?
So we'll see. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. That's a really good question. I really like that question though. Oh wow, I have no idea.
Yeah, I think those 3, like I mean, a lot of ways are the 3 guys to watch for the meet, because they're going to be running in 2 of the most high profile individual races on the distance side, and have run extremely quick times at both.
And now that the guy who's going to come away with the most points is. This is the part where you answer the question. Fill in the blank.
Alex Meyer.
There you go. Yeah, because that's what's going to happen. That we're going to be like, it's Bosley, it's Jacobs, and it's Robinson, and then Meyer's like, hold my beer. Yeah, that's probably.
He's been very good too. I mean, he's coming.
He actually hasn't been like amazing as compared to like a few others that I think we thought he would match. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We got plenty of time to preview that in the next few weeks. Looking forward to figuring out who's going to be actually competing. Like you said, you're going to be talking about what decisions people are going to be making, whether or not they run certain events or whether or not they scratch. We got a lot to talk about in the next 2 weeks. It's crazy that conference championships are over and we are winding down the indoor season already.
Yeah, it's crazy. So stay tuned to the site. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel. Go subscribe on YouTube at The Stride Report. We might do a D2, like a scratch predictions episode on the Blue Oval podcast. So subscribe, ratings and review on Apple and Spotify as well. I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, and then national meet previews. We don't know exactly what we're doing yet, but we plan on covering every single runner and every single distance event, men's and women's, D1, D2, D3. We will see what happens. But we did it last year. We've done it for the last few seasons, actually. Works quite well. And we'll see what happens.
Looking forward to it. It's always a great time of the year. So make sure you're paying attention to the site. Make sure you're tuning in on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, because we are going to have a lot to talk about in the next 2 weeks. But until next week, Garrett, I'll talk to you.